Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Preston. So here's the calendar lineup for the coming weeks. No meeting next week due to President's Night. So the President's Party will be next Wednesday, 29th, right? At 6 p.m. The following week, we're off the 4th of July. And July 13th will be our regular lunch meeting here live at Timuquana and via Zoom. That'll be then President Sean's first meeting with us. So good stuff. That'll kick off the Rotary New Year. Please sign up for the President's Party. We need a really accurate count for RSVPs for that event. So just please sign up how many guests you're bringing and stuff, so we have a good head count for that event. We have some distinguished visitors with us from district. I'd like to call up Assistant Governor B4. And while B is making her way to the podium, I'd like to introduce Assistant District Governor Jerry Kelly. And District Governor nominee John Tabor.
Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you. This is the second time I've visited in this capacity as one of your area governors, assistant governors. And so I am an AG2 and I will be an AG3 come July, supporting District Governor-elect Jeff Michelman. And he has asked his area governors to visit clubs. I don't mind holding it. It's good. Thank you, Ike. Thank you, President Ike. He's asked us to come and talk a little bit to the clubs about the theme for next year from Rotary International President-elect Jennifer Jones. And I had the honor of hearing her introduce this theme at PETS this year with your President-elect Sean. And so I'm going to read to you something that is from Rotary.org that was written by one of their regional content and communication specialists. So I want to give them credit. It was an honor to hear her and listen to her and see the passion that she had for Rotary as she described her vision for this theme next year. So bear with me as I read this. Imagine Rotary is the 22-23 presidential theme that RI President-elect Jennifer Jones revealed in January. She is asking Rotary members to dream big and take action. We all have dreams, but acting on them is a choice. Imagine a world that deserves our best, where we get up each day knowing that we can make a difference. The logo for the theme was designed by Riki Salam, and I'm sure I didn't pronounce that correct, an Australian artist and graphic designer specializing in contemporary Indigenous art, design, and communications. He also created the 2023 Rotary International Convention logo, which will be held in Melbourne, Australia, thus connecting the two by a shared visual language. Meaning of the design elements. There is, of course, a deeper meaning behind each element of the design. The circle in Aboriginal culture, for instance, signifies our connection with one another. The dots around it represent people, and there are 7 because of Rotary's areas of focus. The circle and the dots together become a navigation star, our guiding light. The solid line underneath is what is referred to as a digging stick, and it is used when doing hard work. And since Rotary members are people of action, it represents a tool for getting things done. The colors. The colors green, purple, and white are not necessarily connected to Aboriginal culture. President-elect Jennifer Jones asked the new crew of governors to use one, two, or all three when dressing for official events instead of using a themed jacket. As we celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion, I want all of us to be able to express ourselves differently in what we wear, but still have connection, she explained. There are several ways to interpret the colors. Purple, for example, stands for polio eradication. Green for the environment, the newest addition to our areas of focus, and white for peace, our core mission. Together, they are colors of the woman's movement, a subtle nod to this history, as Jennifer pointed out, since she will be the first female Rotary International president. And so this is her theme. And thank you for allowing me to be here today to talk about it. Thank you, President.
Thank you, B, Jerry, and John for joining us today. It's an honor to have you. This week's Family of Rotary report is Kathy Cole will give that, and Rahul Sharma will follow her with the Sergeant of Arms report.
Good afternoon. We have birthdays this month. We have June 18th was Larry Daly. Bobby Walton is June 29th. And Donna Halsey will be celebrating her birthday on June 25th. On the good news side, Ron and Pam Roberts celebrated 50 years on June 17th. Congratulations. Dr. Jim Lanier and his wife are vacationing in Europe, apparently along with Bud Para. A couple of things on a more serious note. Jimmy Kelly is in his 4th week of COVID, and he is asking for cards and emails. They are welcome. Matt Hevener sent an email today that he's having surgery and would appreciate prayers. I don't know the details. Does anybody know the details? No? Back surgery. Okay. Anybody else have any news they want to report? No? All right. A priest, a minister, and a rabbi want to see who's best at his job. So they each go into the woods, find a bear, and attempt to convert it. Later, they get together. The priest begins. When I found the bear, I read to him from the catechism and sprinkled him with holy water. Next week is his first communion. I found a bear by the stream, says the minister, and preached God's holy word. The bear was so mesmerized that he let me baptize him. They both looked down at the rabbi, who is lying on a gurney in a body cast. Looking back, he says, maybe I shouldn't have started with the circumcision. That's my report.
Well done, Kathy Cold. Well done. Brothers and sisters, it's hard to believe that today marks my final appearance as a starting sergeant at arms. And I have to share this with you. What I have learned about the importance of cheering myself up is that it's also important to cheer other people up. And I believe I've done that for the last 12 months, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'd like to thank our West Jax Rotary Game Day crew. This team does a lot of work to help prepare our meetings each week. They get here early, they stay late. I'm talking about people like Stu Irwin and Patty Chapman. How about a big round of applause for those two? How about our broadcast team of Joe Springer and Larry Daly, making sure that every show goes on without a hitch? Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Each week, I'm privileged to welcome visiting Rotarians, and President Sherlock did a great job in welcoming our dignitaries today. certainly family and friends as well. You heard past President Kathy Cold share her family of Rotary reports. So family is certainly very important to us, but so is community. And we take great pride and privilege when we're able to welcome people into our club. I will walk over to District Governor nominee John Tabor because he also brought a guest here today for us. He's going to introduce here momentarily. John.
Thanks very much. It's great to be with you all this afternoon, by the way. We got some great things going on here, so it's a privilege. I brought with me today Miss Lauren Schultz. She is a colleague of mine and a former Rotarian, took a year off hiatus, and she is actually interviewing new clubs. So thank you for the warm welcome that. Yeah.
Thank you, John. Lauren, hopefully we're not breaking any Rotary rules of recruiting, but we'd certainly like for you to join our club. There's no doubt about it. Carter Rosenblum is like a brother to me. He told me that he was going to bring his cousin to our club. He's such a modest guy. He's such a humble guy. He said, you know what, Rahul, I'm not going to introduce him. I know my family. I'm going to have Will Tesh introduce my guest. And I said, interesting, Will Tesh. But Will also knows our guest very well. Again, another example of family. Will, go ahead and introduce our guest today.
All right. I want to introduce a good friend of mine, Tim Thompson Jr. He's the co-owner of Southjax here in Jacksonville, Santa Glaze, and he's happy to be with us.
Will also is my trainer. So Will and I train at Bailey's in the morning, and every morning I got to go in there and discover what kind of hellacious workout he's got me going through. So he is my trainer and a good buddy of mine, and I'm also Carter's cousin. So, and I know a lot of y'all in here too. So nice to be with y'all.
Thank you, Tim. Will, Carter, thanks, guys. Certainly, again, glad to have John Tabor B4. What a great presentation you gave on the mission and theme of Rotary as we imagine Rotary for the upcoming year. And Jerry Kelly as well. We appreciate your presence. I'm privileged now to welcome up to the podium. I'm going to ask all my fellow Rotarian brothers and sisters to join me in welcoming Tom Schneider up to the podium now. He will introduce our guest today. Tom.
Thanks, Raul, and good afternoon, everybody. Our speaker today is Dr. Broc Flores. He's the co-owner and founder of Fishweir Brewing Company in Murray Hill, along with his wife, Stacy, who is also a co-owner. The Flores opened Fishweir in November 2018 and have operated it ever since. Broc is a graduate of Villanova University with a bachelor's in chemistry. After college, he worked for 2 years for Merck as a lead in drug discovery and design, and then decided to go to dental school. So he went to Tufts University School of Dental Medicine. He graduated in 2013 and was commissioned a lieutenant in the U.S. Navy, deployed aboard the USS Anchorage in 2015, and later moved to Jacksonville in 2016 with his wife, Stacy, and their 2 daughters, Charlotte and Debbie. And they now call that home. The Flores live in Avondale, and Broc still serves as a reserve officer here at the NAS Jax and practices dentistry at Ortega Dental, just a few blocks from here, I believe. On a personal note, I can tell you Nancy and I have sampled the wares at Fishweir Brewing, and they're very good. I especially like some of the sours like raspberry and apricot. But here to tell us more about that is Dr. Broc Flores.
Right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me today. I apologize. It's been a weird couple days for me. I actually just got done with my reserve time with the Navy, and on my way back on Friday, my wife and 3 daughters all tested positive with COVID. So I've been staying in an Airbnb for the last week or so, or 5 days. So I get to go home today. I'm very excited about that. Anyway, I came today. I was lucky to be the guest of the Riverside Rotary Club back in January before they had their beer festival. And I met Tom there, and he asked me to kind of come and talk a little bit about Fishweir, who we are, where we came from, and what we're trying to do, and just kind of give you guys a little bit of history about who we are. So my wife and I, as Tom said, we moved here in 2016. I was active duty Navy. I am a dentist, and I was kind of looking for what my next step was going to be. I knew that I couldn't stay in the Navy because my wife would have left me. So too many deployments in the future. So she was not too happy about that. So I decided to get out. And when we did, we started working on, the possibility of opening a brewery. I've been I would say it was a hobby, but it became an obsession. I was a home brewer for many years, about 10 years before we opened the brewery. And, it started as something for me to tinker with. When I graduated from college, I started working for a pharmaceutical company doing drug discovery. And about 3 or 4 months in, I learned pretty quickly it was actually not a terribly exciting job. And I didn't particularly like being a research scientist. The day-to-day was kind of a bit of a grind. So I was looking for something to do at home and something that was science related. And that's why I kind of got into home brewing. Very first beer I ever brewed was god awful, just so everybody's aware. It did not come out good the first time. So if anybody out there is looking to get into the hobby, the first few are not going to be good. And that's okay. When I met my wife, I was stationed in Beaufort, South Carolina. And she was living in Charleston, and I was brewing in my little apartment, and it was something that we kind of bonded over. Our first date was at a brewery, and when we moved to San Diego, it very quickly became more of an obsession. When I deployed, obviously I couldn't brew on the ship. Well, not supposed to anyway. And so I took a library of books with me to kind of give myself a crash course in brewing, because I had this idea in my head of wanting to do something someday. When we left San Diego, there were 275 breweries in San Diego County when we left in 2016. That's significantly different than here in Jacksonville. So, and when we got here in 2016, there were 8 breweries here in Jacksonville. So it was a very different scene than it is today. And in our mind, we just felt like it was part of the culinary scene and the cultural scene here in Jacksonville that was kind of missing. And we wanted to help grow it a little bit beyond what it was. Of course, I'm sure most people here have had Intuition, you've had Bold City. They were here and established, but to have so few options is rare for a city of this size. So we started kind of working on it when we moved into the Avondale neighborhood. We made some great neighbors. It's a great community, as you all know, I'm sure. And we started to make some friends and got asked the question a lot, hey, do you guys want to do something more significant than brewing out of your garage with this? And the answer kind of increasingly for Stacy and I became yes. And so we started to kind of put together a business plan. And I know you guys met Tim over here. Tim, was not planned, but Tim is actually one of our initial investors in Fishweir. And he helped us kind of get off the ground and do some of the fundraising that we needed to do to get the business going. So the next part of the process for us was kind of finding a location, because location, in my opinion, is probably the most important aspect of opening a brewery. Beer, much like food, is something that if you have right out of the gate amazing food, people will come back. But as most of you know, when you go to a restaurant for the very first time, sometimes they can miss the mark a little bit. So having a good location that's easily accessible with a good community was our most important factor in choosing a location. So we looked around for a while, and then we settled on the Murray Hill area. We loved Edgewood Avenue. We loved what we thought it could become. And, in 2017, when we were looking for a location, Murray Hill was not what it is now. It was still really a little rough. And the building that we were in, for those of you who don't know, we're located right next to Bold Bird. Well, it used to be Huey's, and right next to Maple Street Biscuit Company on Edgewood Avenue. The building used to be called Fat Cat's Nightclub. And if anybody's been here long enough to remember, there was some pretty bad stuff that went on in that building. It was a stain for the neighborhood for sure. So when we started looking at putting alcohol, because it's an alcohol business, into that building, we were a little nervous about city council not wanting another alcohol establishment going in that location. But luckily at the time, Jim Love was our councilman. He, a former Navy guy as well. Kevin Cazell was his, they're both part of the Riverside Rotary Club. They're both Navy guys, and I actually put on my uniform and went down there and got a meeting with them, and we were able to convince them it was a good idea for the neighborhood. And then in the beginning of 2018, we got our approval, and we started building out this pretty decrepit building. And for any of you who've been in the building now, I wish I had some pictures to show you before and after, because it was a pretty stark transition. It went from having a hole in the roof and raining inside and flooding the building on a daily basis to being a really enjoyable spot to go have a beer. So we opened in November of 2018 and hit the ground running. We opened actually the very last day of November, the 29th. And when I tell you we budgeted every single dollar to get that place open, I mean it, because if we didn't do well on that first day, we wouldn't have been able to pay rent for December. So it was a very tight thing to get us open, and everybody came together. Tim will tell you he helped us build our massive cold box one day in there when it was 110 degrees with no air conditioning. And my dad and I built a lot of the furniture and stuff that is in the brewery, all the tables, the bar top, everything was sourced locally. Our bar tops are actually a tree that fell during the hurricane in Fishweir Park. We had a company come and mill it into slabs so we could recycle the wood. We petitioned the National Park Service because it was a federally protected tree. So we tried to bring everything from the neighborhood and really kind of build community from day one. So we opened in 2018. We really kind of hit the ground running. And when we opened, there were 14 breweries in Jacksonville. So in that short period, there had been 5 others and us open, and now there are about 20. There's about to be 22. So in the last 6 years, we've doubled, which has been great for the beer scene. So that's kind of a little bit about our road to how we got where we are and what we're doing now. So we opened with the focus, and how I pitched the brand for the brewery was, as Tom said, he appreciates our sours. We wanted to be a brewery that focused on stuff that was off the beaten path. So here in Jacksonville at the time, the only other brewery that was really creating sour or barrel-aged products was Ardwolf Brewing Company in San Marco. And so they were offering a couple of them, but it wasn't a large part of their portfolio. And I just felt like we needed to have another brewery in town that did something similar. So when you come into our tap room, you're not going to just see lagers and IPAs. You will see them. They're there. And our flagship brand is a lager and an IPA. However, we try to offer a lot of different things so that when you come in and you like to drink Guinness, we're going to have something for you. If you come in and you like to drink Irish Reds, we're going to have something for you. If you like sour beer, we're going to have some of the best in the state. If you want to come in and drink something that's barrel aged, more like a wine product, we're going to have something for you. So we offer a huge variety. We have 20 taps on at rotate seasonally. We only have 4 beers that are core, meaning they're on all year round. So we're rotating through 16 different beers on a regular basis. So when you come in, if you come and visit us once a month, the tap list is going to almost completely turn over in that period. So it's going to change all the time. So if there's something you like, come back and get it right away, because it may not last that long. And that's definitely the model we've built ourselves on, is being able to provide something for everybody, but where you can drink through a flight of 4 to 5 to 6 different beers and maybe be able to find something that you didn't like before, didn't know that you would enjoy. So that's kind of where we kind of built our foundation. We really love being in Murray Hill. It's, like I said, it's a quickly growing area. It's really turned over a lot in the last 2 years with COVID. I think there's just been a ton of people moving into that area, and it's grown a lot. There's a lot of new businesses in the Murray Hill strip. It's been great for us. So it's been a really good experience. Obviously, the COVID year was pretty awful for us, like it was for anybody else. but food and wine and the beverage industry got hit especially hard. It's important to remember that we are built as a taproom model, right? So we're not in Publix. We're not doing cans in your liquor stores. We're doing some of that, but a very small percentage of our volume is that. So when the state shut us down as being able to sell out the door, it was tough for us. But we made it through with the help of the community. Lots of people coming out at 3 o'clock and walking their kids and dog down the street and buying a couple 4-packs and drinking them in the park. So we did okay, and we had to transition a little bit, but we did, we made it through. And it's honestly been an awesome experience for us. We learned a lot. And during the COVID period, we focused on providing a bigger outdoor space. So in November of last year, we opened a brand new 3,000 square foot outdoor beer garden that I promise you, if you go and sit in the back of and enjoy a beer, you will forget that you are in downtown Jacksonville. We had trees brought in from Congaree and Penn to make it a really beautiful green space. We have a cover, lots of shade, big Adirondack chairs. It's a great place to have a beer. If you have young ones that want to run around, they can do that too. And we built a really family-friendly, community-focused space that people can enjoy. And it's helped us grow immensely in the past 6 months. So it's been great for us. So that's kind of where Fishware is at right now. The next phase for us is expanding our distribution footprint. We started sending beer to restaurants and bars about 2 years ago, but it was kind of the backseat to doing tap room. But now that we've maximized our tap room capabilities, we are really starting to grow into distributing beer and our beer products to restaurants, bars, package stores, and things out in town. So with the goal of sometime next year, when you walk in and you see I-10 IPA on a tap in a restaurant as a local, you're going to see Fishware Lazy River right next to it. So our goal is by next year to have it literally everywhere in Jacksonville. So that's our next growth plan. That's really what we're focused on right now. We're trying to grow that side of the business, and that's where we are. So again, thanks for having me. I wanted to kind of give you a little walkthrough about kind of what we are, and I'd love to take some questions.
The Fishware Brewing Company story presented by Dr. Broc Flores. Let's give it up for Dr. Flores. At this time, Rotarians, if you have a question, please raise your hand up as high as you can, and we'll bring over a microphone. This is one of our favorite segments of the program, the Q&A. Mr. Miller.
Brock, thank you so much for being here and for all that you do in the community. I'm a huge fan of Fishware. Will you reiterate where it is downtown? You said the location that you talked about with the Congaree and Penn and the trees.
Yeah.
Where's that location?
Yeah, I may have misled you there. So it's actually behind Fishware's current tap room. So when you come into the tap room, it's actually behind us. There was a vacant space behind us that we literally used to just throw trash in sometimes. It was a wasted space. And when everybody started looking for outdoor spaces when COVID happened, we approached the landlord and basically said, hey, this is a waste and we should be using it. And he agreed. So he let us develop it and kind of turn it into what we wanted. And it's a beautiful spot. And what I meant was when you come back there, you will forget that you're in Murray Hill, Avondale, Riverside. You will be transported somewhere else. It's truly a gorgeous green space.
Thank you, William. Dr. Flores, if I could take your attention straight ahead back. Lee Davis has a question.
Thank you for coming out today. And I wanted to ask you a question. This past year, I was on our social committee and we would meet about once a month or so. And for all our members to have some cool place to go. And we were wondering if maybe you might want to sponsor us coming up this year. We come in the evening from like 5:30 to 7:30. When it cools down a little bit, that backyard sounds pretty good to us.
We would love to have you guys. Yeah, the part,
right.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. The part that's been really nice with the backyard opening is, and that's what we are calling it. We do call it the backyard. The building itself, when we built it out, was designed to kind of look like an Avondale home. It's lap siding and craftsman style posts and pillars with a front porch. So we call the front porch, and we call the backyard. So that's kind of why we branded it that way. Because we want it to feel like you're at home. That's the whole point. But for sure, the nice part about having that space is we've been able to host a lot more events, larger events, and we can have them without disrupting the whole tap room. So we don't have to shut down the whole place to have you. So if you're looking for a place to have a birthday party, if you're looking for a place to have a graduation event, a rehearsal dinner, those kinds of things, we can definitely host you, and we can do it when it's not June and July and August, outside and in a beautiful, a beautiful environment. So it's really nice. We would love to host you. I'll put you in touch with my wife does all the events, and all that stuff. So I'll make sure that you get in touch with her.
Lee Davis, credit to you for, getting that deal done. How about another round of applause to Lee Davis? Always thinking about socials and bringing our Rotarians together. Dr. Flores, thank you. I'm going to take you to the director's seat now. Joe Springer has a question.
Actually, it's two questions.
Sir.
What is the volume that you put out in gallons? And I don't know if they judge it by the week, by the month, by the year. And second question, did you bring any samples?
So we actually, our canning machine just went down really hard last week. So I don't have a whole lot of packaged beer. So that's why I didn't bring any samples. Otherwise I would have. So we're working through that. So as far as when we talk about brewing, we talk about barrelage is how most people talk about it. So a US barrel is 31 gallons, which is 2 of those big kegs that you usually see. So a large keg is 15.5 gallons. So 2 of those is 31. So most breweries are put into a US barrels per year. So our first year in 2018, obviously only opened for about a month or so. We did, less than 100 barrels that year. 2019, we did about 350. This year, we're going to be somewhere close to about 900. And the goal would be next year to be somewhere near almost 2,000. So it's a lot of growth barrelage for us. We've been producing a heck of a lot more beer, which has been great. Just to kind of put that in perspective, though, yes, that does sound like a lot to go from 300 to 2,000. That's a huge increase. But 2,000 barrels is what Bud Light puts into cans at the Jacksonville facility every hour. Okay. So we don't even come close to participating in what that type of environment is. So, a lot of people will talk about, you go to the Sierra Nevada and Asheville, or you've been to some of those bigger breweries that are even craft, like a Sierra Nevada is. And those guys, every time they make a beer, they're brewing 2,000 barrels. So it's a whole different scale of things. The largest brewery as far as production in Jacksonville right now is actually Wicked Barley. It's not, most people think it's Intuition. It's not, it's Wicked Barley. And they're going to produce about 8,000 barrels this year. So, these craft breweries that you go to and visit and you drink in a tap room, we're little itty bitty peons compared to what the big boys are doing. So
Thank you for putting that in perspective, Dr. Flores. I'm going to take you straight away center. Joe Eberly has a question.
Do you serve food? And if so, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, great question. So before COVID, and Tim will attest to this, we had a conversation a few times about bringing food in. And we were a little terrified of it because, well, I don't have any experience in the food industry. My wife doesn't have a whole lot. We didn't really have anybody in our investment team that knew a ton about food. So we were a little leery of it. We wanted to bring food in, but we decided after COVID that that wasn't really going to be the path forward for us, at least not in that location. And so what we've been doing now, now that we have the backyard and we have some more access to things, we've been looking at bringing in, we have started and we will continue to bring in food trucks every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we have a food option available. That being said, the great part about our location is we have some very, very good food like immediately next to us. I would argue that Moon River Pizza is probably the best pizza on this side of town. I really like their food a lot. So we throw away a ton of Moon River Pizza boxes on a regular basis. We're certainly not going to make pizza better than them. So, we'll let them continue to do that. Next to us is what was formerly known as Huey's, now Bold Bird, which is Nashville hot chicken. They're really popular. People really like having some, their chicken, and it's spicy, and people who like spice, you definitely go there. They'll get you going. And, you know, we've got a bunch of other food options up the street. We have Larry's and Fired Up Pizza up the street as well. And they do some great wings and sandwiches and things. So, and they'll do delivery. So you can actually call them from your seat in the tap room and they'll deliver it right to you. So we have worked with a lot of our neighbors, again, all part of that community focused atmosphere we have, to use what's around us already to make sure people can sit down and after their first beer, have something to munch on.
Dr. Broc Flores from Fishweir Brewing Company is our guest today. Rotarians that are joining us via webcast, we encourage you to submit your question through the chat, and Joe Springer will communicate it live to us here inside the room. Dr. Flores, I'm going to take you across the room now. Carter Rosenblum has a question.
Yeah, I was curious. You mentioned being a hobbyist brewer and going into a much, what I would consider a larger production mode. Was there a big learning curve in that process, or did everything go smoothly, or are there some mistakes along the way?
Do you want the truth or yeah? Yes, there was a big learning curve. The learning curve comes just from the perspective of when I was brewing at home, I was brewing, 10 gallons at a time. And we're a 7-barrel system, and just kind of do the math for it, it's 217 gallons. So it's a big step. I mean, it's a big increase in volume. That being said, the physical aspect of brewing that much liquid is what changes. The science and creative aspect behind it doesn't. So for me, my foundation was in the science and the creative, output of the product. So that was not the challenging part. The challenging part was just learning how to get 217 gallons from one place to another, and learning how to do that, while taking care of the product. Because the brewing process is mostly about cellaring, which is what happens when the beer is actually fermenting, and after it's done fermenting, getting a product from a big tank into a little can or into a small keg is a lot harder than it seems. And that aspect was where we had probably our biggest learning curve. We strive to have the best product available, but we did budget and plan for having some what we call dump batches in our first couple of turns. And we did. We had our third beer that we ever brewed went down the drain because it just didn't meet standards and wasn't good. And in our first full year of operation, we had 3 of those batches total that went down the drain. So far this calendar year, we haven't had one. We only had 1 last year. So you learn quickly. You have to. So, but yeah, there's definitely a learning curve to it. But if if you have a good foundation in like the science and you have a good creative mind, it's not that big of a jump.
Still plenty of time for questions. Up next, Lauren Schultz, followed by Judge Del Wallace. Lauren.
Thank you. You mentioned Fired Up Pizza that's down the way there from you guys. And I know there, if you wanted to grab a drink and stroll around the neighborhood, they allow you to take to-goes, which is a novel concept. But do you all have the same availability, or is it just in the tap room and backyard?
Yeah, Murray Hill doesn't have an open container law. So that's difficult for us from just some of the legality of it. We have started to see some people and some businesses venture into that. We're watching that carefully because we would love to see Edgewood Avenue turn into an open container location. It would be a massive improvement to the area, I think, and really draw people in. If you could sip and shop, we would love that to be the case, draw more foot traffic. But right now, we're only doing it in the building and in the tap room. That being said, Murray Halloween is a great, they do an event every year in Murray Hill for Halloween, the big parade and everything, and they shut down the entire strip, and it's open container that day. So definitely come out and walk around. That event will be sponsored by Fishweir, and it'll be our product out there. So come have a beer, enjoy it. Good question. I'm sure there's some people in here that could help me change that law and rule. So maybe I need to stick around and figure out who that is so we can make that happen.
Yeah, I like beer and a lot of different beers and IPAs and lager. Could you just address the difference between making an IPA and a lager beer? I always heard of IPAs have hops, or just a little bit about
Sure.
how you make the 2 different types.
Sure.
As examples.
So the two main different types of beer that exist are ales and lagers. And really the only thing that's different is the yeast that goes into them. An ale fermentation is something that's going to be done warm. And when we say warm, we mean something between 62 and 72 Fahrenheit. And a lager is something that is brewed cold, which is usually brewed between 48 and 57 degrees Fahrenheit. So really the temperature is what changes. And then the other big difference is because of the temperature and the yeast style, you get a much different flavor profile. So when you drink a lager, if you start even with something like a macro beer, like a Bud Light, a Miller Lite, or you go to something like ours, which is more craft design, like a German style Pilsner, like Lazy River, you're essentially looking for something that's going to be clean, crisp, not have a ton of overwhelming flavor. And we like to use the word crushable, where you can put a few of them away and not really kind of be too bothered by it, a lawnmower type beer, right? So lagers usually tend to be much more easy drinking and more approachable. Whereas an ale is going to be something where, because it's warmer, the yeast type that you're used might express significantly different flavors to you, where you might get not a whole lot in a lager. You could get lots of green apple. You can get lots of berries. You can get lots of fruit, toffee, caramel, different types of flavors in an ale that you would not get in a lager. And so really, when you're talking about a difference between, again, like a Pilsner, a lager, a light lager, those kinds of beers, and an IPA, the big difference is the yeast that's being used to make them. Now, IPAs nowadays have become significantly different. The hazy or New England style trend has become dominant. And just to kind of put this in perspective, IPAs in the craft market represent about 75% of all beer sales. So they dominate beer styles across the United States. The New England style now represents more than 80% of all IPA sales across the United States. So that particular style has become very popular. The reason they're so popular is they tend to not be as bitter. They're a little sweeter. And again, that's all because of the yeast profile, but they're still getting that big hop character in the beer. And a lot of times when IPAs are made, IPAs are the way that they are. The smell and the flavor are there because we do a process called dry hopping, which is when a beer is done fermenting, we will cool it down to 34 degrees and all the yeast will come out of suspension. It will essentially die and we'll recapture it or remove it from the product. And then we'll add the hops, and basically with the alcohol that's in the beer, it will extract flavor from the hops, almost like making tea. And sometimes we do that. We will actually take the beer out of the tank, mix it with the hops, remove the hop pellets and leaves, and then inject the tincture or the tea back into the beer to create the flavor profile. So hops are a very tea-like product. There's actually a lot of products out there that are based on hops that are tea-based products too.
A very informative presentation by Dr. Broc Flores of Fishware Brewing Company. How about a round of applause for Dr. Flores today? President Sherlock, I'll send it back up to you at the podium.
Thank you, Brock. Another fantastic presentation. I want to send a special thank you to not only Dr. Flores, but to President-elect Sean, who's organized, and Tom Schneider, who's helped organize a bunch of presentations this year. But Sean's, as president-elect, responsible for all the programs throughout the year. So special thanks to Sean for doing a great job. Also want to thank William Milne and Lee Davis, who you just met, and for all the socials they coordinated through the year and into next year. Thanks. Since this is my last lunch meeting as president, I want to thank the game day crew, Joe Springer, Larry Daly, Patty Chapman, Stu Irwin, Rahul Sharma. Great job keeping me on track all year. Really important, no lunch meeting next week. Next week is President's Night. So don't come here at noon, come here at 6 p.m. President's Night, very, very special night. We kick off our Rotary year. It's a very special night for President Sean and her incoming board. So we want everybody to be there to celebrate with them. Please make sure you RSVP. We really need to get a good head count for that event. The following week, 4th of July week, we will not meet that week. July 13th is our first meeting back with President Sean. So lunch, July 13th. I would ask Judge Mark Halsley to lead us in the four-way test.
The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First. Second, fair to all concerned. Third, friendship. And fourth.
Beneficial to all concerned.
Quote of the week: you cannot wait for inspiration. You have to go after it with a club. Jack London.